मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामी इति नाम्ने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
Shri
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर
Shri
शिवासदि गौर
Gaura
भक्तवृंद।
Bhakta
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
Hare
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare
Hmm. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is thus enjoying in his transcendental eternal form. It is not astounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord. Is it not astounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord non energetic? The Lord is the controller of all energies, and the living entities are parts and parcels of the energy. Hmm. Therefore, there is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the living entities. How then can one say that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same? In the Bhagavad Gita, also, the living entities are described as belonging to the superior energy of the Lord. According to the principle of intimate correlation between the energy and the energetic, both of them are non different also. Therefore, the Lord and the living entities are non different as the energy and the energetic. This is Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So, the impersonalists, I mean, if in India this is very common, the impersonalists think the that one has to eventually merge into the absolute, that the living entity becomes the supreme. Now, this kind of a misconception has become very widely prevalent. Everyone now thinks that the eventual goal of life is to become one with the absolute, moksha. But according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here, this is a misconception. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhava mattah sarvam pravartate, that I am the origin of all, everything emanates from me. So if the Lord is the origin of everything, how can then we say that the living entity is the same as the Supreme? The spark of a fire has the same qualities as the fire, and yet it is not fire. It is fire and it is not fire. So, likewise, the living entity is the same as the Supreme Lord qualitatively, but not the same in quantity. And if the living entity shows all these attributes of personality, then how can we say that the Absolute has no personality? That would mean that the living entity has more attributes than the Supreme, or the more attributes than the origin itself. So, both of these claims are actually quite contradictory. They do not make any sense. So Mahaprabhu is now refuting the descriptions of the. He's now Mahaprabhu is refuting the descriptions of the Vedanta Sutras by this, given by this one. You know what's his name? Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. Or he's refuting the theory of Mayavad as delineated by the personality of Adi Shankaracharya. Hmm. Hmm. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are all inferior energies of the Lord, but the living entities are different from all as superior energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita. So you see, this is a very interesting point here that even the mind is actually inferior energy. Mind, the intelligence, the false ego, these are all manifestations of the material nature. So the gross body is a manifestation of tamoguna or the mode of ignorance. The senses are a manifestation of the mode of passion, while the mind is a manifestation of the mode of goodness. In this way, the living entity is encased by the material energy. And within this particular body, within this gross and subtle body coverings, the living entity floats on the five life airs: prana, apan, udan, different types of life airs that are within this body. So the entanglement of the living body within this material body, the entanglement of the living entity within this material body is quite complicated. And it all begins with the association with the false ego. And then the living entity's ties to this material nature keep on increasing. Hmm. The transcendental form of the Lord is eternally existent and full of transcendental bliss. How then can such a form be a product of the material mode of goodness? Anyone, therefore, who does not believe in the form of the Lord is certainly a faithless demon and, as such, is untouchable. A person not to be seen, persona non grata, fit to be punished by the Plutonic king. So, of course, Srila Prabhupada here is using more biblical language. So, so the Supreme Lord cannot be a product of his energy. The energy is emanating from the Lord. The Lord cannot be a product of this energy. Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu or Narayan, they are the source of all energies. The energy does not create them. Unlike us, we are a part of this energy. We are the Tatastha Shakti, but the Lord is not. Lord is the origin. And any person who does not accept the personality of Godhead is considered untouchable. Now you can imagine our deplorable position in this world when we are trying to convince people to follow the Supreme, and most of the people are not even interested. So we can imagine that practically the whole of the world today is untouchable. That means by simply touching such persons, our consciousness gets polluted. We become contaminated. The Buddhists are called atheists because they have no respect for the Vedas. But those who defy the Vedic conclusions, as above mentioned, under the pretense of being the follower of the Vedas, are verily more dangerous than the Buddhists. So this conversation is taking place 500 years ago, and India did not have you can say more Christian invasions at that time. At that time, there were no Western invaders in India. Actually, around Mahaprabhu's appearance, Vasco da Gama had just landed in South India. So Western invasions had not yet taken place. So the only religions in India were either the Vedic religion or Islam or Buddhism. Buddhism has been around for much longer duration. So Buddhists are considered atheists because they do not believe in the Vedas. For them that they are the followers of Lokayatic philosophy. No, they are the followers of Vaisheshik philosophy. So they are atheistic. They do not believe in the soul or the existence of Supreme. They are atheists. But the Mayavadis or the impersonalists, those who profess to believe in the Vedas but do not accept the personality of Godhead, are considered much more dangerous because they claim to be Vedantists, they claim to know Sanskrit and the Vedas, but they deny the personality of Godhead. They deny the very object of Vedas. Vedaishcha sarver aham eva vedya, Krishna is saying. I am to be known from the Vedas, but if someone professes to be an authority on the Vedas and then denies the personality of Godhead, that person is considered to be demonic. Persona non grata, fit to be punished by the Plutonic king. So they are very, very, very dangerous persons, those who do not believe in the personality of Godhead. See, Vyasadeva very kindly compiled the Vedic knowledge in his Vedanta Sutra, but if one hears the commentation of the Mayavadi school, as represented by the Shankara Sampradaya, certainly he will be misled on the path of spiritual realization. Mayavada bhashya sunile haive sarvanash. So if one accepts the impersonal conclusions, one actually becomes worse than an atheist. An atheist actually is in ignorance and has no knowledge. But a so-called Vedantist who does not accept the personality of Godhead is actually demonic because he knows, but his knowledge is perverse. So such a person is actually to be considered very demonic. The theory of the theory of emanations is the beginning subject of the Vedanta Sutra. All the cosmic manifestations are emanations from the absolute personality of Godhead. By his inconceivable and different energies. The example of the touchstone is applicable to the theory of emanation. The touchstone can convert an unlimited quantity of iron into gold, and still the touchstone remains as it is. Similarly, the Supreme Personality can produce all manifested worlds by his inconceivable energies, and yet he is full and unchanged. He is Purna, and although an unlimited number of Purnas emanate from him, he is still Purna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So, from the Supreme Lord, whose complete wholes are emanating. Each of these material universes is complete in itself. And even within this material universe, there are different worlds which are complete in themselves. So these complete wholes are emanating from the complete whole Supreme Lord, and yet the Lord remains unchanged, just like the touchstone. Hmm. The theory of illusion of the Mayavad school is advocated on the ground that the theory of emanation will cause a transformation of the absolute truth. If that is the case, Vyasadeva is wrong. To avoid this, they have skillfully brought in the theory of illusion. But the world or the cosmic creation is not false as maintained by the Mayavad school. It simply has no permanent existence. A non permanent thing cannot be called false altogether, but the conception that the material body is the self is certainly wrong. So, Jagan Sat, what is that principle?
Brahma
Hmm.
Satya Jagat Mithya.
Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. So, Brahma or the absolute is reality, but Jagan Mithya, the world is an illusion. So, this is the contention of the Mayavadi philosophers or Adi Shankara. But Srila Madhavendra Puri, Srila Madhvacharya, he maintains that Jagan is not Mithya, the world is not an illusion. The world is very real. The bondage of the living entity is also very real. The three modes of nature are very real. But the concept that the living entity is eternal in this material world, that is Mithya. Hmm. Any questions or comments so far? Now, Om or the Omkar in the Vedas is the primeval hymn. This transcendental sound is identical with the form of the Lord. All the Vedic hymns are based on this Pranava Omkar. Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi is but a side word in the Vedic literatures, and therefore this word cannot be the primeval hymn of the Vedas. Sripada Shankaracharya has given more stress on the side word Tattvam Asi than on the primeval principle Omkar. The Lord thus spoke on the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propaganda of the
Hey,
Mayavadi school.
Prabhuji, we had a lot of doubt in this. Matlab, I could not give a comparative explanation over here. So if you can explain on this paragraph more, then that will be very helpful.
This one, Tattvam Asi.
Tattvamasi and Pranav Omkar. Like Prabhupada is saying, Pranav Omkar is the primeval hymn, and Tattvamasi is a side word. Matlab, what words Prabhupada is using itself, I had a doubt, so I can explain it in the last class.
Okay. So, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Okay. And Tattvam Asi. That now inquire into the Brahman. Tattvam Asi. That which you are. So if you put them together, that inquire into the Brahman which you are. This is what it becomes like a sentence.
Here I have
So
a doubt, Prabhu, because Tattvam Asi also means Tat means you or the opposite person whom you are referring to. Tvam means me, and Asi also means like we are similar in nature. So
yes.
Tattvam Asi also means like that. So how to understand?
Tvam Asi, that which you are. Tat Tvam Asi, that which you are. Now the problem here is that is an aphorism. Like in mathematics, we have these short formulas, empiricisms. So this Tattvam Asi refers to the qualitative nature of the living entity. That you are also Brahma. But you are not Omkar. You are not the supreme. By quality, you are Brahman, but you are not quantitatively Brahman. So Krishna says, of the sounds, I am the Omkar. But Krishna is Omkar. So, like we have discussed previously, also, the living entity is emanating from the supreme. So he is in a way the same as the supreme, but still he is different. Therefore, the Lord and the living entities are non-different as the energy and the energetic, like fire and the sparks. Sparks are also fire, but they are not exactly fire. I mean, you can cook your food in the fire, but you can't cook it in the sparks. And yet the sparks are the same as fire. They have the same quality. Sparks can light. So, is this clear, Prabhu?
Yes,
So,
Prabhuji.
what Srila Prabhupada?
That example of fire and spark is a beautiful example. Like whenever we have a doubt, we can relate with that example. Like all living entities like us are sparks coming out, and fire. So quality is same, but we are very insignificant and tiny. So
Hmm.
we cannot be as energetic as the Supreme Lord Himself.
Hmm.
Though we may
We
be called
cannot be
as a
the.
superior energy, we may be the superior energy compared to the material energy, but still we are very insignificant to the absolute truth.
Hmm. Hmm. The supreme. Hmm. So, Tattvam Asi. So, if you put stress on that, it means that you are. That means you are the supreme. That is what Shripad Shankaracharya has explained. But Tattvam Asi is a side word, like it's like a secondary principle. The primary principle is that the Lord is Omkar, which he claims in the Bhagavad Gita also.
Okay, so here the word side word, which Prabhupada is saying, means it is a secondary principle. Okay, and
Yes.
the primeval him, the word Prabhupada uses for saying that it is a primary principle, it's the main principle, main fundamental principle is Lord is Omkar. That is, uh, the other living entities cannot be called as Omkar. Okay. And
Hmm.
yeah, so qualitatively we may be equal to the Lord, but that is a secondary principle. The primary principle is Lord is unique, and nobody can become equivalent to the Lord.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danda Pranamji.
Krishna.
Prabhuji, can I ask another question?
Please, please.
We talk about Sripad Shankaracharya. Also, it comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Advaita Acharya Prabhu also at one point began to preach Mayavad. So,
Hmm.
who actually began to preach Mayavad? Was Sripad Shankaracharya ji before Advaita Acharya or other way?
Hmm. Okay. I mean, Shripad Shankaracharya is ancient. He's much older than Mahaprabhu's timeline.
Acha ji.
So, Advaita Acharya was not exactly preaching Mayavad.
Mm-hmm.
Advaita Acharya was preaching impersonalism. Mayavad
Acha ji.
philosophy is a special case of of impersonalism, that you are
They're
the supreme.
equal. You are equal to Krishna. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, Advaita Acharya was preaching a different philosophy. He was preaching Yoga Vasisht, which is also an impersonal philosophy.
Then Prabhuji,
That
question
moksha.
comes Shri. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, ji.
So the goal of that is that you are that moksha is the ultimate goal of life. Liberation from material miseries is the goal of life.
Hmm.
So Mahaprabhu got very angry. That there is
But
goal of life is not freedom from
but
misery. Goal
that
of
was
life is attainment of the love of God.
But this was not the intention of Advaita Acharya. It
Advaita
was
Acharya.
deliberately
Yes.
done so that
Yes.
he invokes the mercy of the Lord, because uh, Lord was always putting Advaita Acharya in a very exalted position. So
Yes.
Advaita Acharya
Mm-hmm.
never wanted to be worshipped by Lord Chaitanya.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to get chastised so that Lord will
Yes.
not give him that exalted position. So that was just a
Yes.
pastime actually.
That's true. Now the question comes, Prabhuji. Sripad Shankaracharya being Shivji's kind of incarnation, when he was given such a heavy duty to
Hmm.
bring the masses this way, he could have
Hmm.
been given the duty to bring the masses right away into devotion, no? Why this middle step somewhere?
Because
Wrong.
it is impossible. It's impossible to make an atheist into a devotee directly. See, Mahaprabhu came to just give the love of Godhead. That is just like you can just call it like an ecstasy or an ecstatic madness.
Mm-hmm.
Shripad Shankaracharya established the authority of the Vedas.
Mm.
Actually, even the Vaishnava schools, they split off from the Shankara Sampradaya. Madhavendra Puri. So Puri, Saraswati, these titles, what they call that, Dashnami Sampradaya. So there are different types of titles. So the Puri or Saraswati, these are titles given by Shankara Sampradaya only.
Also,
Oh,
Bharati.
अच्छा है.
Bharati also.
Bharati.
Hmm.
Bharat, in fact, we say Keshav Bharati or
Hmm.
Madhavendra Puri.
Hmm.
So those are the essential titles given to the sannyasis. They all come from the Shankara Sampradaya only. But Adi
Oh, that's
Shankara, actually, Adi Shankara himself has not propounded Mayavad. He has propounded the Brahmavad philosophy. It got converted to Mayavad. Eventually, it was interpreted because he left it open ended. So Adi Shankara defeated the Buddhist philosophy by re-establishing the Vedas. But when you are re-establishing some principles, you cannot establish everything. So he established the authority of the Vedas, and later on the subsequent acharyas like Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, they established the dual principle, the duality principle.
ठीक है जी. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna
Krishna.
ji.
So once people had faith in the Vedas, then the Vaishnava acharyas could establish the personality of Godhead. Otherwise, people had become complete gross atheists, Buddhist. Then they had no conception of Vedas or any form of knowledge at all. So it was a two-step conversion. Hmm. The Lord thus spoke on the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propaganda of the Mayavad school. The Bhattacharya tried to defend himself and his Mayavad school by jugglery of logic and grammar, but the Lord was able to defeat him by his forceful arguments. He affirmed that we are all related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally, and that devotional service is our eternal function to exchange the dealings of our relations. And the result of such exchanges is to attain prema or love of God. When love of Godhead is attained, love for all other beings automatically follows because the Lord is the sum total of all living entities, of all living beings. The Lord said that but for these three items, namely eternal relation with God, exchange of dealings with Him, and the attainment of love for Him, all that is instructed in the Vedas is superfluous and concocted. So very interesting. This is a combination of actually two verses here. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Dharma projito kaitavo. So the Srimad Bhagavatam kicks out all kind of cheating religions, and at the same time, Chaitanya Manjusha also says that Srimad Bhagavatam pramanam amalam prema pumartho mahan. The love of Godhead is actually the highest principle. All the other principles are secondary. So all the karma kand, jnana kand, all these principles delineated in the Vedas, they are all superfluous because they do not lead to the ultimate goal of life. Karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyan yoga, ashtang yoga, all these yogic processes, they are secondary to the actual objective, which is the love of Godhead. Hmm. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. So Traigunya Vishaya Veda. So the Vedas are dealing with the subject matter of the three modes of nature. Traigunya Vishaya. And Krishna is telling Arjun, Nistraigunya, to rise above these three modes. So in other words, one should not become trapped by the flowery language of the Vedas. Hmm. The Lord further added that the Mayavad philosophy taught by Sripada Shankaracharya is an imaginary explanation of the Vedas, but it had to be taught by him, Shankaracharya, because he was ordered to teach it by the personality of Godhead. In the Padma Puran, it is said that the personality of Godhead ordered his lordship Shiva to deviate the human race from him, the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead was to be so covered so that the people would be encouraged to generate more and more population. His lordship Shiva said to the Devi, in the Kali Yuga, I shall preach the Mayavad philosophy, which is nothing but clouded Buddhism in the garb of a Brahmana. After hearing all these speeches of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya was struck with wonder and awe and regarded him in dead silence. The Lord then encouraged him with assurance that there was no cause to wonder. I say that devotional service unto the personality of Godhead is the highest goal of human life. He then quoted a shloka from the Bhagavatam and assured him that even the liberated souls who are absorbed in the spirit and spiritual realization also take to the devotional service of the Lord Hari, because the personality of Godhead has such transcendental qualities that he attracts the heart of the liberated soul too. Then the Bhattacharya desired to listen to the explanation of the Atmaram Shlok from the Bhagavatam 1.7.10. The Lord first of all asked Bhattacharya to explain it, and after that he would explain it. The Bhattacharya then scholarly explained the shloka with the special reference to logic. He explained the shloka in 9 different ways, chiefly based on logic because he was the most renowned scholar of logic at that time. The Lord, after hearing the Bhattacharya, thanked him for the scholarly presentation of the shloka, and then, at the request of Bhattacharya, the Lord explained the shloka in 64 different ways without touching the 9 explanations given by Bhattacharya. Thus, after hearing the explanation of the Atmaram Shlok from the Lord, the Bhattacharya was convinced that such a scholarly presentation is impossible for an earthly creature. Before this, Sri Gopinath Acharya tried to convince him of the divinity of the Lord, but at that time he could not so accept him. But the Bhattacharya was astounded by Lord's exposition of the Vedanta Sutra and explanations of the Atmaram Shloka. And thus he began to think that he had committed a great offense at the lotus feet of the Lord by not recognizing him to be Krishna himself. He then surrendered unto him, repenting for his past dealings with him, and and the Lord was kind enough to accept the Bhattacharya. One of his causeless mercy, out of his causeless mercy, the Lord manifested before him as four-handed Narayan, and then again as two-handed Lord Krishna with a flute in his hand. This is a Shadbhujaru, six-handed form. The Bhattacharya at once fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and composed many suitable shlokas in the praise of the Lord by his grace. He composed almost 100 verses in the shlokas in the praise of the Lord. The Lord then embraced him, and out of transcendental ecstasy, the Bhattacharya lost consciousness of the physical state of life. Tears, trembling, throbbing of the heart, perspiration, emotional waves, dancing, singing, crying, and all the 8 symptoms of the trance were manifested in the body of the Bhattacharya. Yeah. Sri Gopinath Acharya became very glad and astonished by this marvelous conversion of his brother-in-law by the grace of the Lord. Out of the 100 celebrated shlokas composed by the Bhattacharya in the praise of the Lord, the following two are most important, and these two shlokas explain the mission of the Lord in gist. They are as follows. Let me surrender unto the personality of Godhead who has appeared now as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the ocean of all mercy and has come down to teach us material detachment, learning and devotional service unto himself. Since pure devotional service of the Lord has been lost in the oblivion of time, the Lord has appeared to renovate the principles, and therefore I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. The Lord explained the word mukti to be equivalent to the word Vishnu, or the personality of Godhead. To attain mukti or liberation from the bondage of material existence is to attain the service of the Lord. The Lord then proceeded towards South India for some time and converted everyone he met on the way to become devotees of Lord Sri Krishna. Such devotees also converted many others to the cult of devotion. Or the Bhagavad Dharma of the Lord, and thus he reached the bank of the Godavari, where he met Srila Ramananda Rai, the governor of Madras, on behalf of Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of Odisha. His talks with Ramananda Rai are very important for higher realization of the transcendental knowledge, and the conversation itself forms a small booklet. We shall, however, give herewith a summary of the conversation. So, after Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya realized that Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself, he composed 100 verses. And out of these 100 verses, he glorified the Lord and specifically pointed out his mission. That is to teach us material detachment, learning, and devotion, and to renovate the principles which have been lost. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that over a period of time, the principles appear to have been lost, and therefore I appear again time after time to re-establish those principles. So then the Lord explained the meaning of the word mukti, that really attaining the love of Godhead is actually considered liberation. The so-called moksha of the material world, where one becomes freed from the miseries of material life, is not a real liberation. Because the living entity, even if situated in Brahman, which is effulgent, it may still become attracted by the glare of Maya. Because in Brahman, there is no question of loving relationship. So as soon as the living entity desires some love, he will have to fall back into the material world. Therefore, the Lord explained that mukti actually means only the love of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments so far? Okay, then we stop here today because the time is up. We'll continue on Monday with this discussion. If anyone has any questions, please feel free. Otherwise, we stop here today. Okay. So, Prabhu, you can mark the paragraph if you want.
Yeah, Sri Ramanand Rai. From here, we'll start.
Yeah. Was a self-realized soul.
I think you read this, and now we have to start this one. Yeah, this one will do it. Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय हरे कृष्ण
Hare
प्रभु जी
Hare
दंडवत
Krishna.
प्रणाम थैंक यू
Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Dhanvat
हरे
Pranam ji,
कृष्ण
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.